Would you have something?
Oh, yes, there's no rain there, and that's quite a ways out. Yeah.
Okay, it's 7 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order in the absence of the supervisor. Is there a nomination for chair?
I nominate Paul Hubble.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You have the pledge.
Ready for the pledge allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Bennett? Here. Goss, your help?
Here.
Lawson?
Here.
Pop is absent.
Set to address the meeting agenda.
I have two things. I'm going to request that we move new business number 1, which is the cemetery sexton, to right before reports and presentations. Bob Wilkinson is here, but he has to travel to Peninsula Township for a meeting yet tonight. That's one, if the board wouldn't mind that accommodation.
Okay.
And then the second thing is I want to add personnel issue as new business number 6.
Lloyd, our mics are not on. Lloyd, my switch is on.
Any declaration of conflict of interest? Hearing none. Public comment.
Janet Backey, 6987 Cook Road, Williamsburg, Michigan. Please include this in the minutes verbatim. Whitewater Township Board, Whitewater Township employees, and residents of Whitewater Township. I am concerned about the behavior of our township clerk. More devastating is how people are treated that walk through the doors of the township hall by the township clerk. We should feel safe and treated with respect. We should not be talked to rudely, using a swear word, having my own husband, deputy supervisor's integrity ripped apart by calling him a liar. Abruptly questioning another township worker, putting her in an uncomfortable situation while trying to make my husband look like a liar. My husband, nor should any employee working for the township, be defamed by another employee of the township in the presence of other employees in their place of work to a spouse or a private citizen. There is no excuse for this kind of treatment. I was upset how my husband's reputation that he has built and upheld in our communities in which we have lived, worked, raised our children and grandchildren, coached sports, and volunteered for many years was being disgraced by the township clerk. But as I thought about this, I felt sad and sorry for the clerk that she allowed herself to act this way towards another human being and find comfort with it in her own mind. Now you tell me why I deserve, or anybody would deserve, being treated this way with a coworker working in the township. Another question would be, why would the other coworkers in the building allow someone to be treated so badly and not step in and say this is enough? Do you think this is professional, or how a public office holder should act? Or any of you treat each other and the public disrespectful for differences in opinions, and because we want rules followed and things transparent? You better take a good look around and do some real soul searching. Dig deep down in your hearts and ask yourselves, are we doing our jobs for the people of Whitewater Township? Why are we allowing people of this board to group people against each other and thrive on drama, gossip, anger, and negativity to get what they want. This is not working for the people of Whitewater Township. Why are you allowing belittling and being insulting to select individuals by constantly creating an environment of being mean, bossy, and negative? Is it so you yourself does not get treated this way? So you just follow the lead, buy into the he said, she said, and the hatred with no proof, and let the mistreatment of others continue when you know how wrong this is? Township boards are formed of people from all walks of life to work together for the people to protect all of us. This is our constitutional right. We are all created equal and deserve to be treated fairly. My heart is heavy. It is truly an unfortunate position that you put me in, and I had enough. I or no one should be afraid to voice their opinion or be afraid to walk in our township hall. So Whitewater Township Clerk, you may not take my husband, Deputy Supervisor's integrity. He has earned it, and it's not yours for the taking.
Anyone else for public comment?
Oh, go on ahead, sir. Go on ahead.
Tim Schaefer, 5309 Moore Road. I only got two things I want to talk about. The first one is the specs for the engine or pumper tanker. I think the fire chief and the crew that come up with those specs did a super job because the bids were so close together. That tells me they did a very, very good and awesome job. The other thing is, I'm going to commend, I'm going to say the whole township for this one. Della put it down that 97.95 of the payments were made at the township hall and not turned over to the county for collection. That is super.
Anyone else?
Ron Backey, Whitewater Township Deputy Supervisor, 6987 Cook Road. I'd like to give out a belated Happy Mother's Day for all the mothers in the audience. I became interested in the township about a year ago. When I became aware of the event barn ordinance that has been in the works, I have always been a firm believer that the introduction of commercial business within the residential districts is and would be a recipe for disaster. Along the way, I've been pushing for the concept of full transparency and accountability. I have made every township board meeting, with the exception of one that my wife Janet has attended. I have also been to every planning commission meeting as well. When Mr. Pop approached me around 2.5 months ago and informed me of his medical issues, and also that he wanted me to be the deputy supervisor due to his absence, I was shocked. So, in that request, all I heard was that a friend of mine was not doing well and asked me for help. I did what all good people would do and say yes. Trust me, deputy supervisor was not a priority on my bucket list. With Ron's help, I managed to learn a lot about ordinances and articles, gained relationships with our residents, and helped out Mr. Pop in any way I could. Unfortunately, along the way, I ran into many obstacles. I prepared hard for the first meeting. I was nervous and excited. The township board said I could not sit at the tables, that it would set a precedent. I thought that odd. I looked into the history and saw that in the absence of our clerk, Cheryl Goss, the deputy clerk sat at the tables. Many guests have sat at the tables, but not the deputy supervisor. That would be setting a precedent. I see it as a lack of courtesy or respect for the supervisor's office. My first week, Cheryl, the clerk, Cheryl Goss, asked me if I had a key to the township, because she had noticed things looked like they were disturbed or gone through. I do not have a key. I certainly would not go through the township stuff. In the second week, I noticed a discrepancy in the posted meeting dates. A meeting that we attended and other meetings were going to be posted wrong, as well as the days of the week, did not match the dates. I sent Cheryl an email to inform her of her mistake, to make sure they are accurate. She replied to me that Mr. Pop should have informed me of the proper dates. I showed up at the meeting and stated it should be canceled due to an Open Meetings Act violation from an improper date posting. The township board did not take this well. One member said it was targeting. I felt I was doing my job as a deputy supervisor to inform the board. Picking up mail from the supervisor's box and getting it to Ron is one of my responsibilities. Sometimes I would fax copies to him or email him while he was away. I'm simply a go-between to help facilitate. I'm just there to try to help. One day I returned the gravel and road brine agreement that was signed, and notes were put on it by Ron. The fax had some lines in it, and I requested to get a new fax, or have him fax it to the township. I agreed with Cheryl that it could be much better. Then she went on a rant. She said to me, despite that you and Janet and Heidi think that Ron Pop is your leader, there is no hierarchy here. I didn't look for confrontation, nor did I deserve any. This was not productive, so I left and said, have a great day. Which leaves us to the situation that my wife Janet was referring to earlier. Wednesday, May 1st, was running late for a planning commission meeting. I got there around 7:15. I got up from my seat around 7:30 to grab the supervisor's mail in front of the whole planning commission. I went home and sent it to Ron, as I always do. The next day I was in Petoskey working. I'm a contractor. I was working at a church. I got a call from Ron around 11. Thanked me for sending the mail, but said it wasn't his. He said, no problem. It was either in the wrong mailbox or you accidentally grabbed it from the one above him. He told me to return it to the township as soon as possible. I couldn't do so. So I called my wife Janet and I told her there was mail in my office in an envelope. Please return it to Cheryl ASAP. She returned it to Cheryl around noon. No harm, no foul, right? I wish. But no, Cheryl Goss went off on another rant. She disrespected my wife, myself, and everyone in that office. She accused me of lying and purposely taking documents, mentioned copies, then me of lying, and purposely, and point blank said they were not the papers from her mailbox. Then she approached Lois and asked her if they were the papers she put in her box. Was this treatment fair to Lois? The way Cheryl Goss acted on May 2nd was the complete opposite of professional. I've given to my community all my life. I've ran organizations, youth organizations. I've been Pop Warner president for 10 years. I organized and ran the Elk Rapids Easter egg hunt for over 20 years successfully. I played the Easter Bunny, which I take, as a very proud moment in my life for over 20 years. I've coached football at every single level for over 20 years. And, I did most of this without a paycheck. And now I serve my community as deputy supervisor. You, Cheryl Goss, question my integrity. Shame on you and anyone who would support this cause of action. I see a divide in this township board. I would like to see everybody work hard to bridge that gap. Ron Pop told me once, and it stuck, and I used it at the Planning Commission. Whether it be in government, law, or ordinances, there is no winning, only compromise. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to a positive meeting. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Youth, 80 through 71 Winnie Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. Thank you, Ron. Keep up the good work.
You have to address the board, Betsy.
Okay. Ron, this one's for you. Thank you. Keep up the good work, regardless of what others think. Sticks and stones still works today. Again, thank you, and thank you again for stepping up for we the people. Sometimes we have to take it hard and let it roll off. As elected and appointed officials, you are held to a higher standard, and the pride one pays with the price is much higher, and the fall hurts much harder. When elected to office, you gain the public's respect. Trust is earned, not given. Not here to point fingers, but the clerk has violated the respect we gave her with our votes. We entrust you with the hope and faith with our vote to make our neighborhoods nice, our communities safer, and our business climate strong, and to provide the citizens with quality services. In order to do that, one needs integrity with the public's interest, number one in mind. We come first. Your choices are for the people, not your own self or your agendas. Given today's caustic political climate, common citizens are in no mood to accept anything less. Every ordinance you pass, every action you take should be rooted with solutions and stewardship. Not kingship, not queenship, not ownership, and not entitlement. One runs to serve the people, not to be served. Remember, you hold office. You don't own your office. The votes simply loan you the office like rent to represent the best interests and concerns of we the people. Should one fail and lose sight of this come voting time, we the people can then reclaim it if we do so choose, and loan it out again to someone that will respect not only our wishes, but our concerns. At this point, there are no penalties or actions for lack of respect. However, Cheryl, a great solution here would be a healthy start, would be to apologize for your actions. Some would say beg for forgiveness at this point, but the true loser here is your actions have tarnished your reputation, and that's really a shame. Thank you.
Anyone else? Move the podium, please.
Good evening, Board. I'm Mike Conlon. I live across the highway at 5918 Vinton, and I'm interested in buying a small parcel across the street from my house. So I wanted to make myself available if you have any questions. Recently at a tax auction, I bought a sliver of property that parallels M72 and abuts the township's parcel. So ultimately, I would be looking forward to doing a line adjustment and putting those two parcels together so it would be of acreage to do something with in the future. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? For those that are new in the audience, you're new, like new faces, remember 5-minute public comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a reminder.
Thank you. So I am Robert Barnes, this is my wife Angela, and we live at 863 Bertina Lane in Traverse City, but we recently bought a piece of property on Wheeler Pines Road. So we're looking forward to being part of the Whitewater Township community. We have hired a local builder, Terhune Construction in Williamsburg, to build our house there. But the logs won't be available until, not this coming August, but the following August. So it's going to be a little bit before we can build. Our plan, what we would like to do is sell our current home because, well, the market's really good right now. And the subdivision that we live in is, homes sell really fast in there. So I would like to sell the home as quickly as possible and move to, we have another home up in Eastport. So we want to move into that home while this home is waiting to be built and then built. In the meantime, our home in Eastport is fully furnished and we need somewhere to put all of our stuff, which is a lot of stuff. So our thought was, what we'll do is we'll build an accessory building here store our stuff while we're living in Eastport until our home here is done. I spoke with Lindsay Wolf on the phone the other day, and she told me you have an ordinance that prohibits the construction of an accessory building until a primary building is on the lot. And I did a little research on that, and it's not uncommon for townships to have that kind of ordinance. And I think I understand why. I think it's because you don't want somebody to build an accessory building and then live in it. And if you have any comments or you can give me some advice on that, I'd appreciate any comments you can make. So what we would like to do is support, because I heard that you're going to discuss this very topic in an upcoming board meeting. So we would like to support any initiative that would allow people like us who want to use an accessory building, not occupy an accessory building. So it would be a change in your ordinance, and we would support that kind of change. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. As you know, public comment, we will get back to you, we will discuss it right now.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing nothing, any more comments, public hearings, there isn't any. Reports and presentations.
Actually, we moved the new business cemetery sexton.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right after that.
I'm sorry. Yes, we did.
So if Bob Wilkinson could come up, please. This is Bob Ford. This is our trustee Paul Hubble and trustee, Lloyd Lawson. Paul Hubble, supervisor's not here obviously, and treasurer Del Benick. And I met, in my memo pretty well lays out that I met with Bob and everything, and another gentleman too. And as the board knows, we've known since last December that we needed to hire a cemetery sexton this year. So I've been working on that. As a matter of fact, Bob has already performed a full burial for us this last Saturday. And done some foundation marking, and he's got another burial coming up this Thursday, I think. It's coming Thursday? Is this following one after that? Okay. Anyways, so Bob, I believe, is a great candidate to be our cemetery sexton. You've got his resume of experience, and he works for Peninsula Township, Inland Township, and where else?
Acme and Green Lake.
Acme and Green Lake,
And
too.
St. Joseph Church.
And St. Joe's Church on the Peninsula. So, and as my memo mentioned, I called a couple of his references and they were glowing. They said Bob is wonderful. I've been working with him for the last 3 weeks, and he has, he didn't have to do those things for us. And we would have been hard pressed to find someone else to do it. So I'm recommending that we hire Bob as our cemetery sexton. So one of the things we need to do is appoint him, and then we need to approve the proposed agreement. And I will say, with respect to the proposed agreement, it's about 3 or 4 times as long as the one we had with Ernie, that was signed many, many, many years ago. So, and as I mentioned, I stole from a couple other sexton agreements, and it's just a basic agreement. It doesn't need to be reviewed by our attorney. These are very standard clauses that are in cemetery sexton agreements, and like I say, so that's my recommendation.
So we probably appropriate to have a motion.
Yeah, I have a motion in my memo. I don't know what page of the board packet that's on.
165.
I have 2 motions actually. Yeah, 165. And Bob, do you have anything you want to say, or does the board have any questions for Bob?
Cheryl?
Excuse me, this is board discussion right now. Thank you.
Oh, I'm not part of that?
Well,
Ron's
let's
on?
have the board here. I asked them if they had any
Oh,
questions.
I'm sorry. Appreciate it. Ron did have some input on this with a memo, and I'd like to read that. According to the township policy and procedure, the township personal director, supervisor's office, and the township personnel administrator are to work together on such items under consideration with this point of business. The clerk's office has not made any attempt to schedule or even inform the supervisor's office of the listed interviews. Operation by any office outside of township policy and procedure cannot be supported by the office of the supervisor, nor should it be supported by the board. Moreover, all agreements should be reviewed by legal counsel before board consideration. Thank you.
And if I might just add, Ron Pop has known since last December that we needed a cemetery sexton. If everybody would just understand, it's not, cemeteries are not a statutory duty of the clerk's office. Typically, the only involvement that clerks have with cemeteries is we record the burials. And we do the paperwork to sell burial spaces. We don't go out and, it's the cemetery sexton that does everything at the cemetery. So it's not the clerk's responsibility or any one board member's responsibility to make sure that the township is providing cemetery sexton services. It's the entire township board's responsibility. I took on the task of meeting with these people because I knew that burials are going to be coming up, and we've got people interested in lots and all that. So Ron Pop can complain all he wants, but the fact of the matter is he didn't lift a finger on this issue. We need to get it taken care of, and I have made this recommendation. I'm sorry that Ron was not here. Ron, to my knowledge, has been out of town and not able to attend interviews. So business has to go forward.
This is actually a contractual service, it's not an
It is.
employee,
Right.
correct?
Yeah. Yeah, Bob will be invoicing us for, as he already has, for the one full burial, and he'll be invoicing us for those things. He will not be invoicing us for putting foundations in. That is handled either through the funeral home or with the families. Foundations have to be put in ahead of monuments. And
Cheryl, one thing I did notice, and I'm not sure if it's, at this point we should talk about it, but the pricing is different than what we have
yes,
normally established, so we are going to have to address the changes in that also.
yes.
You've got that in the second motion on there.
Well, that's to approve the sexton agreement with his fee schedule, but I'm going to be bringing a resolution, a simple resolution, to adjust our cemetery rates again. The full burial,
You're talking about cemetery rates itself.
Yeah.
yes, the rates itself, I'm going to be bringing that resolution. I already have it on the June agenda,
Okay.
so we'll be addressing that then.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Robert Wilkinson as Whitewater Township Cemetery Sexton effective immediately.
I'll second that.
Do we need a roll call?
I think voice is fine.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? Motion passes.
And then we have the sexton agreement, which, like I said, I researched several other sexton agreements, and this is kind of a combination of everything that I found. Sexton agreements are very simple. They just basically say, the ordinance controls what happens at the cemetery. But this is our agreement with Bob to provide these services for the township for the foreseeable future.
And we had one of these agreements with Ernie, correct?
We did, and it was even not as long as this, it was maybe a quarter of a page. Also, I will tell you, I checked and double checked on this. Bob does have liability insurance. However, Ernie was always covered under our general liability policy, and Bob is as well. I double checked this with Paul Olson, and he said, I said, are you sure I don't need to get, a certificate of liability? And he said, no, you don't. He's covered under the township's general liability. Now, Bob has it. If he wants to give us one, I'll take it and put it in the file. But we don't need to require that.
The only change that I think I would like to have on here is number 7, either party may terminate this agreement upon 10 days. I would like at least 30 days. I've seen, Cheryl, I know how much work you went through interviewing too, all the contacting of different townships to find the names of sextons, who people are using. I mean, it was a big job, and I'm giving you credit for it. I'm giving you credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
Was line item 7?
Item 7, I would like to see that say 30 days, not 10.
Are you okay with that, Bob?
That's pretty standard, actually.
Okay, works for me. Works for me.
I can make that change.
Anything else? Good? Everybody?
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the Whitewater Township Cemetery Sexton Agreement as amended with the attached 2019 fee schedule.
I'll second that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate you being here. I know you have to get to the Municipal Townships meeting.
Feel free to contact me anytime if any of you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so now we're gonna go back to.
Oh, Bob, hey, just a second. Can I grab you just a second, Del? Oh, I'm sorry. We need to change that. I was gonna have you sign it. I'm sorry, we need to change it. I'll send it to you, okay?
Okay.
Go back to, any public hearing, reports and presentations, county board commissioners report.
Just here.
Good evening. I'll keep this brief. Looks like you have a long meeting. One of the things we keep in front of us on the agenda in the county is pension liability. You hear me mention that every time I give you an update because that is key. What the board has done is we've increased our contribution to MERS, who manages the pension liability for the county. We had to commit $5.9 million a year annually out of the general fund. We increased that to $7 million. The reason being is the formula was based upon a 7.75% return on their investment of the $50 million they're holding for the county. And we thought that was way too optimistic. So we had them give us a figure of lowering to 5 3/4. And that comes up to $7 million. So I'm confident, as a number of the other board members, pretty much the entire commission, that that's a key priority. We want to keep on top of that. And that's really, if you look at the funds, the $40 million that the county raises in the general fund through taxation and grants, et cetera, the only real obligation we have is the commitment to the pension liability. That's something we have to make before anything else. We can cut costs anyplace else, and we have that latitude, but we can't fall behind on the pension. That's a constitutional commitment. So anyway, we're in good shape on that, and we'll keep focusing on that. The county jail, as I reported last time, still remains a focus. It's a complex issue. It's a moving target. You may recall several years ago the discussion came up about overcrowding was the main issue with the county jail. Well, our jail population is actually going down. We have a capacity in the current jail of about 160 beds. They were talking about building a 300-bed jail. Well, the population is going down for a number of reasons. Two I mentioned before. One is and I think it's a commendable effort by the judges, where they've created a sobriety court and a drug court, where people who want to address their issue will agree to participate in that program, which is a very stringent program. And if they complete it after a year, their felony convictions expunged, and they can go on their way. Much better outcome by far than people who are sitting in the jail, in the county jail for a year's time. So again, excellent program. I can't say how much I've been impressed by the judges that have run that. They certainly convey to the participants. They're encouraging them in every way possible, but again, they keep on a very tight, short leash. They get tested 1 or 2 times a day for drugs and alcohol. They have commitments in terms of their jobs, etc. And if you sit in those sessions, you feel very encouraged that a lot of them will turn their lives around. And since most of them, if they're convicted of a felony or anything and they're in the county jail, when they're released, they come back out in the community and they stay here. So the last thing we want to do is keep running them through the system. I took a tour of the Wexford County Jail, completely different design, much more efficient. And so if we do build something, it'll be of a completely different design, much more efficient, and operating costs will probably be 60% of the operating costs now of our county jail. We spend $5.5 million a year, primarily in salaries, to man the jail. So it's a big cost. The other topic or something that came up that made the press and you may be aware of was the health department was pursuing a grant to fund the harm reduction program, which is a funding of programs that work with people who have drug addictions, through counseling, a number of other things. Well, one of the things that they also do is a needle exchange program. And that caused a big discussion at the last county board meeting. And people have ethical views on should we be exchanging needles for people who are taking illicit drugs. And as it turned out, we kind of put that on the back burner and we've got to rethink that one. Because we, in essence, turned down a $50 million grant because that was baked into the equation. And there were people with strong opinions on that, on both sides. The sheriff is strongly opposed to that program, but the health department is equally in support of it because of the hepatitis C that is being passed by people using dirty needles. So that's something that'll come back to us. I'm sure that'll get resolved. And I've had conversations with the health department, and I think we'll get that resolved. 2 more issues. Tree cutting at the airport was a big issue. Made again, the paper must be slow news day. The question was, they cleared a 40-acre parcel near Costco for future development or other opportunities. And something I wasn't aware of is that that airport property is owned jointly by Leelanau and Grand Traverse County. And it's run by a board that's appointed by the 2 county commissions. Grand Traverse has a larger presence because of the investment there. Traverse City, a number of years ago, in 1990, opted out of that. They used to be a part of it. At that time, the cost of running the airport, they were running in the red, so they had to be the general funds of the city, the county, and had to make up the difference. Since that time, they are running a profit and have a very healthy general fund balance, so they're doing a good job there. The question about cutting of trees, everyone's finally agreed after a lot of discussions they have a legal right to do it. An airport authority on their property can address and spend money and do things that are to support aeronautical purposes or aeronautical benefits. And when they built the Costco, for example, the aeronautical benefit was Costco is paying rent to the airport, so that's a source of funding for the airport that keeps them in the black, but we as taxpayers don't have to augment it. So after a lot of discussion, a lot of play in the paper, it's perfectly legal what they did. And it was also an issue of animals getting onto the runway. that was a side issue that was cited by the FAA that it needed to be addressed. So I think hopefully that issue's behind us. Lastly, tomorrow we have our board meeting, and we'll have a strategic planning session to identify what are the key things the county should be focusing on over the next several years. And everyone has submitted, 7 commissioners, all of our different opinions, and we hope to boil it down to 3 or 4 that we really focus on over the next several years. So that's about it. Any questions?
Lord, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is County Road Commissioner report. Let's see here. Mobile medical response report is in our packet. Fire department report. Chief?
Thank you, good evening. Kind of had a busy
Oh,
month.
thank you
Oh, thank
for
me.
your service.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Here.
We had a kind of busy month in April. 7 calls, I think we're up to 33, I think I did. Report number 33, which I would expect those numbers right around the end of June, maybe the 1st of July. So we're a little ahead on our call volume, which is okay. The biggest thing we're keeping an eye on is the burn permits. As you know, the DNR has kept those closed pretty much every day except for a few rainy days we've had here and there. So we've been working really close with Steve Cameron over there at the DNR, the fire supervisor, because our area is mostly state land. And over the past few summers, we've had substantial windstorms that has caused a great deal of fallen trees. So there is quite a bit of fire load out there that we're keeping an eye on, and we're working collectively to keep the illegal burns down to a minimum. So that's kind of been a handful. I did respond with Blair Township to about a 100-acre fire a couple of weekends ago to help with one of the staging areas, because we had a conglomeration of fire apparatus from probably 3 different counties come and help us out with that. But eventually DNR came in with their bulldozers and heavy equipment and took care of it. But nonetheless, it was kind of a scary situation. One of the other big things Ron and I have been working on is the asphalt paving project. That probably first couple weeks of April we worked on that. I was able to get somebody out from Consumers Energy to help us out with that. The power line feed to the fire station comes in at the east side by the cemetery and cuts across the front of the station. So my big concern was if we do put new paving or concrete down in front of that, it's a fairly old service that feeds the fire station. His suggestion was he wouldn't go with the new pole that feeds the tower that's on the west side between the fire station and the post office. That they would use the existing pole, which I kind of was curious about, but his suggestion was just to throw in a couple sleeves if we do the project, which would alleviate any future problems. So that was my big concern with that. We ended up getting that taken care of. The Target Solutions, our training platform, is up and running, and the guys will be working on that, which will help us out a great deal. Other than that, we're looking forward to a action-packed summer here at Whitewater Township. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chief. Do you mind?
Nope.
I don't actually understand the issue with the power. What is the issue with the power?
The power feed to the station
Yeah,
is from the pole between the station and the cemetery.
right, yeah.
And it laterals underground across the front apron.
Oh, underground.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, all right, I get it. I thought that
Yes.
was overhead there.
no,
No, it isn't, okay.
I think the line did go back to a pole behind the station at one time.
Yeah, we had that taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I believe it's the original service lateral for that building, which is coming up on, what, 50 years?
So how far deep is that down there? I mean, is it?
I had it
heaving
located.
Would disturb it possibly?
No, that was part of an issue, is the depth. It is 5 feet,
Oh.
except where, towards the meter, I think it comes up to about 2 feet.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it shouldn't get in the way of construction.
Okay.
But my fear is if it deteriorates over time and
We can't get to it.
we can't get to it. We don't wanna tear up a brand new front apron
No.
to replace it, so
No.
we should be all set on that.
I do have something I want to say. Sure. You want to read it? Take time to read it. I want to read it. Reading through your report, your monthly report, I have to tell you that I have never had such good communication between the fire department and this township board since I've been on the township board. And that includes our time with rural fire. Communication coming from rural fire or coming directly from the fire department. Your communication is excellent. We know what's going on, we know what's going on in detail. I just want to say it's an excellent job, and I appreciate it very much. And I don't know if this is an appropriate place to say it or not, but firefighter Tilley and Stevenson, the work that they did on saving that gentleman's life, outstanding, just outstanding. If they can get a commendation or something for what they did, they should.
Yeah, I'm a little leery about that, and I didn't want to talk about it too much tonight, but technically a CPR save is when the patient is able to walk out of the hospital. So at this point in time, he is still on a ventilator, and he is also on some, like, some other machine. And there's a certain name for it, and I didn't even think Munson had one, but it oxygenates his blood. So he still has quite a hurdle to go.
But just their heroic
Yes,
efforts that
yeah.
they made.
Are you talking about the young man that had a heart attack?
Yes.
At Skagamog Point Road.
Very
Yeah.
close friend of ours, my daughter.
Oh, yeah?
Went to visit her husband last week in Grand Rapids.
Oh, he's in Grand Rapids?
Now
Okay.
he's doing pretty good.
Is he?
He's not out of the woods, but
Oh, that's
he
good.
might
to hear.
make it.
But if they hadn't been there,
Yeah.
and our crew, our crew was already out on call, if they hadn't have been there, chances are the young man
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't be here today.
Thank God the police officer had the
Yeah.
shot machine too, and
Yeah.
his wife was a ER
Yeah.
nurse.
Yeah. It
But
was
just
kind
an
of a,
excellent job.
Yeah.
I just wanted to recognize them.
Yeah.
and I kind of been waiting to hear it. You know, the information is tough to gather because it was North Flight and it was the sheriff's department and it was all these other outside agencies where I can't really get too much information. You know, MMR, I can
Right.
get information from them, so.
Yeah.
But it was the perfect storm. About 20 minutes before that, we had another cardiac patient right around the corner on Williamsburg Road, I think. So MMR took that patient in priority 1, and the police officers were here, and our guys were at the station, which was good because at that time of night, they don't staff a North Flight unit out of Station 8, so they had to come from Traverse City. So it was kind of a perfect storm, but it ended up working out for the best for that patient. So I will, for sure, make some arrangements for them to rescind some kind of accommodation if the patient does well. But, you know, if the patient does well, it's kind of, you know, you hate to give people awards, you know.
No, I understand.
But they
I just
really
wanted-
did.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. We really appreciate all the support we get from our township board too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, planning commission report, Mike?
Well, on May 1st, we had our meeting, and we discussed accessory structures. And the planning commission overall doesn't think that accessory structures should be completely banned on property owned by themselves. Lindsay's done a little research for us, looking around outside of the Grand Traverse area, and there are townships and that allow it, but with stipulations or regulation. And one area we talked about extensively was the Arcadia district, which Wheeler Pines is in. And one of the things they were talking about was allowing it in some way where it could be controlled and dealt with. And one of the stipulations would be if you were
planning to build and you've got the process started and you needed to build the structure first, then exactly what he's doing is what the PC talked about. And overall, we felt there was nothing wrong with it in the RC district or in some other areas too as well that are equal to what the RC district. They also talked about actually allowing them in the RC district for people that want to have their sleds stored up there for the winter or their boats in the winter instead of hauling them back and forth. And that's all they're doing is using them for storage. So.
Why just the RC district?
Well, that was the main one we talked about. They were talking about other districts too, where it'd be allowed in some of the other districts as well, but not all of them. But we're trying to figure it out.
I'm not sure what the difference is. If you're gonna allow them, you allow them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That was discussed too. So, planning commission is not against it. So if the board was to decide on changing any of that, to allow for it, you're gonna get support on it.
Anything else, Mike?
We did talk a little bit about the 5 acres requirement south of town. And, but we're still waiting on more information on whether it's actually, a legitimate ordinance or not, for the research to finish on.
Good. Any questions for Lloyd?
I was just wanting to say, as regards to the planning commission meetings that I've attended the last couple months, it's been a bum deal when they ended because I really enjoyed them. I think that you guys are really working well right now, and I really like your support to one another and your input and your debate and your discussion, and it's exciting.
Yeah, man.
I think
It's a good bunch of people and they're not afraid to talk and everybody speaks their mind, what they feel.
Well, that's good to
Quite
hear.
open. It seems pretty productive.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, that brings us to Park and Recreation Advisory Committee report.
The committee met last night, all 5 members were present. They have asked me a couple, 3 times to bring up to the board, well actually I was supposed to contact the school and I haven't had a chance, but over where Lossy Road meets Skegama Point Road, there's a little 1 acre parcel right south of the trail, fronts on Skegama Point Road, and it's owned by Elk Rapids Schools. And recently that was listed for sale. And they had wanted me previously to approach the school about, hey, can we take out a few trees down there and, allow some parking? Because there's nowhere to park over there, just on the road, on the side of the road. So it was reported last night that this little 1 acre piece has been listed for sale for $29,000. And so they wanted me to run it by the board, whether the board would be interested in pursuing that piece of property. It's not really an agenda item tonight, so I don't know that we should spend a lot of time on it, but maybe we can put that on the agenda for June or something, and just see if the board is at all interested in that. And they've got the other 40 acre piece on Moore Road too, and I don't know if that's been listed. Obviously, we're not interested in 40 acres, but this 1 acre might, just because it's directly adjacent to the Lossy Road Trail, might be a place to put some parking in there.
Well, just a thought, we all discussed it, but maybe we look at Grand Traverse Conservancy, and a little help on that too.
Right.
Good point.
Become interested.
Let's put it on the agenda, there's some good points here.
Anything
Okay.
else, Cheryl?
Yeah. Then the committee just basically discussed all of their various projects that are going on. They have quite a project list for this summer. That big box back there is the batting cage net, and also the chain and the hangers for hanging the net. And so we've got to have the roof is done over there, it's all done. So we got to have that graded in there. There's some holes where it was put up, and that's gotta be kind of graded off, and we're debating, we just got some, Dennis Leach actually got some quotes today on whether we wanna put like pea stone in there, or he suggested Afton stone, or, diamond dust. And, the prices are really fairly close. So I don't know if anybody here has any ideas on that, but they would like to get that done. We got a quote from Josh Tress, I think it's Precision Landscaping or something like that, or Precision Property Maintenance or something. Anyways, to have him grade that off over there. So we need to get that done, and then they'll get the net installed. And on the dugouts, we're waiting for a form to be filled out, before we can go get the building permit. Melissa Melton recently walked, the trails in our trail project with, signage, kiosks, and benches. She walked them with, this guy from the Land Conservancy in April, and she updated the committee about that. I'm gonna get a quote from this guy on some kiosks that they recommend. We only need two, one for each end of Lossy Road, to put the rules in, and a map in there, and, put some rules up. And then Melissa's going to get a sign count, for Whitewater Township Park. And we have now gotten, and I don't, two of them I have not gotten to Ron yet, because they just came in recently, but we do have 3 applications for the Parks and Rec Committee alternate position. So I'll get, one of them, Ron already has, it's Tom Slopsman's wife, Linda, is one of them, and then Pat Pierce, and then a William Bussa, who just owns some property down here. So I'll get those, because they really do need an alternate. Since Chuck retired, Chuck Decker, in September, they've not had an alternate. And it really affected, a couple of meetings this winter. One had to be canceled outright, and one had to be delayed by a week. So, that's it for me.
Just to comment on that recommendation, I've had a fair amount of experience with building driveways and stuff on the farm.
Okay.
Afton stone is probably one of your finer ones to put down, especially with the soil textures over there. George talked me into it, and I've never looked back.
Yeah.
Lets the water go through it, it holds its compaction,
Yeah,
it never gets muddy. It's really good stuff,
okay,
for whatever that's worth to the board.
okay.
I've heard a lot of people speak highly of that list.
We have it on all our high traffic areas on the farm, and it works really well.
The only thing I was kind of concerned about that is that the balls, you know, they're gonna be coming out of the pitching machine. And that I thought maybe they might bounce more on that, where with the pea gravel or diamond dust, it's gonna absorb the energy.
True.
So I wondered, that was my only hesitation on the
I
Afton
don't know
stone.
enough about that, so.
And different places use different things. One place, I've talked to quite a few places about their batting cage rules, and, oh, that was another thing they worked on, was some tentative rules for use of the batting cage. I've talked to several people, the county, they've got like pea gravel, but then, diamond dust in the batter's box of, you know, part of it. I've even heard from Della's husband, earlier this week, that, one place he went and looked at has indoor-outdoor carpeting. So, but, Dennis Leach thought that that would not hold up well,
Probably not.
you know.
Well, I can get you all the cherry pitch you want.
Really? Okay. You gonna haul them down there too? Anyway, so we'll have to make a decision on that, but if you think the Afton stone would be a good thing,
Well, I know it'll hold its integrity,
yeah.
if that's what you're looking for.
I mean, we're not looking for it to be too hard packed, but,
Oh, no, it's like gravel, but it holds its integrity, and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. It's not like a regular 22A gravel. It lets the water go through.
Yeah.
22A gravel will get muddy.
yeah, right. And then the one thing I was worried about too about pea gravel is sometimes that'll get in your shoes. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anyways, maybe the Afton, and the Afton stone was the exact same price as the diamond dust. So, diamond whatever.
Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar.
And I just have one thing I want to add to that, that's the halt fire letter. that we got. I sent it out to everybody today. There's a copy in the public documents over there. I don't think I brought a copy in here, it's in your email. But it was, they provided a bid on the pumper tanker, and they were very impressed with Chief Flynn. And so they said they thought the specs were really well done and all that, and they were complimentary of him. So I want to add that in, so we get that in this month's consent calendar.
Okay, fine by me, and just need a board approval on that, or is it just?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
This should be a roll call.
Oh, sorry, money? Yeah, sure.
Bennett?
Yes.
Goss, yes. Hubble?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
Pop is absent.
Okay, that brings us to unfinished business. Number one is pumper tanker award, contract award.
Where it's on 61.
All right.
I was very pleased with the price.
Do we
I've
want
been told maybe up to as high as $425,000.
to bring Chief Flynn up and let him explain this, or?
So if you remember, we had, what, 5 bids? The lowest one was $340,000. We threw that one out right away. It didn't even come close to our specifications that we sent out. The second to the highest one also, that was from Sutphen. They did not match our requirements either. And then the highest one, of course, which was a very nice truck, but a lot more expensive for, you know, what we're getting here for $343,000. So, but other than that, these are the CSI agreement. He sent it over with his specifications and some, you could see some architectural drawings of the vehicle itself. He wrote up his own set of specifications which kind of mirror ours. You know, we sent him the packet that we put together, and he kind of mirrored that as he went through. There are a couple slight differences. You know, every manufacturer has their own little way of doing a manufacturing process. I had CSI help us out with the bid specifications first, and he kind of left us hanging and didn't get back with us, and I kind of told him that was one of my biggest concerns with choosing him. But he assured me that, you know, it was just a busy fall last fall and winter. But that's when I had Bill DeCat, and he's from Halt Fire. He's the one who sent that letter recently. I really held him to task, and he was kind of impressed with that, maybe, which kind of prompted him to write that letter, because I wasn't going to let another dealer or someone who's going to help me with the specifications just kind of do a half job with us. So I did help hold him to task, and we made up some a good packet of specifications. His was an aluminum body, and afterwards I added an option for a poly body, which is kind of the new way for fire apparatus. A long time ago they had steel bodies, and probably old timers didn't want to see aluminum bodies. They said, the truck's gonna fall apart. But now, you know, I'm kind of at that stage. I'm like, I don't want a poly body, I want an aluminum body. You know, trucks are gonna fall apart. But it's kind of the new wave. They've been around for probably 20, 30 years, and they're holding up well. And I think that's gonna be a good avenue for us to go down. And they last forever. I mean, if something happens with the chassis, you can unbolt this body and bolt it onto a new chassis. And that's one of I guess that's one of the benefits of having a commercial chassis versus a custom chassis fire engine. The commercial chassis also, there's a shop here in town that works on them. They're an authorized dealer. So if anything happens with the chassis or the drivetrain, we can just take it up to uptown here to Traverse City, and they can diagnose it and hook it up to their computer. And, versus our engine 3 is a custom chassis, and it's very difficult to find contractors to work on it. And when we do find contractors to work on it, it's very expensive. So that was kind of our idea.
Dealer in town.
You know what, I can't remember. They're over behind the landscape company near Hilltop.
Oh.
Blue. I can't
Blue
think.
stuff, no.
I can't think of the name of the company.
That is, just
Yeah, but they are just down by Grand Chunks Corners area.
Yeah. Not Grand Traverse East.
It might be.
I think they're out that way.
That was kind of our idea with going with the commercial chassis. Not to mention the price, a custom chassis is probably double. Like to replace engine 3 now, it's gonna be like $550,000 to $600,000. So we're kind of getting the same thing for half the price. And you know, I'm keeping in mind that this is a replacement for our tanker. And we did throw a pump on there because we do not have a backup pumper. So that's kind of our priority. You know, we have a 20-year-old tanker, which is at its maximum life. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. And I think he really did a good job on us, price-wise.
Maybe I missed it. What is delivery date?
They are kind of planning on towards the end of January.
Okay.
And the problem is getting a chassis from the manufacturer. They're about 6 to 8 months to get a chassis from the manufacturer. But they're hoping we can get it within 5 months or so, if we get the order in. Because he was kind of explaining it, a lot of the big companies, like maybe Ryder or U-Haul, they put large orders in at the beginning of the year. But then they start canceling some of those orders as they get into their second and third quarters. So there are spots open that were once reserved. So we have an option of getting one of those spots that open up.
Any other questions?
Were all of the firemen on the apparatus committee, or was it a select group?
It was just 3 and kind of one straggler started showing up to the meeting. So there was probably 4 of us.
Yeah. Nice.
And you kind of want to limit that because lots of ideas
Yeah, too many
and things,
ideas.
yeah. So,
Good job.
but it worked out well. Not everybody wanted to be on it, and the guys who were on it wanted to be on it. So, and that's kind of important too. You know, kind of want to be on that committee to do it.
Okay, anything else? So we're looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion to enter into contract dated 05/14/2019 with CSI Emergency Apparatus LLC for the purchase of the 1,900-gallon tanker on a Freightliner chassis per proposal dated 03/27/2019 at a total contract price of $343,886.00, and further authorizing Fire Chief Brandon Flynn to execute said contract.
I'll second.
Okay, this will have to be a roll call vote. When you're ready, Cheryl.
Goss, yes. Hubble?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
Yes. Beck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So I don't have the contract printed out, but if we could get that printed out and have you sign that tomorrow or something, and then I'll cut a check sometime this week.
Okay.
Mail it off to them.
All right.
with the contract, or maybe I'll just give it to you and you can put it in with the contract or something,
Okay.
if you want to do it that way.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, unfinished business number 2, Miami Beach sewer system document review.
John and Tom are here.
Would you like me to speak to this?
If you'd like to, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, I think the board knows we got, John and Tom, or the Miami Beach Road Association attorney drew up some documents. They provided those to our attorney. Our attorney commented back, Jacob Whitty from our attorney's office, commented back, that's all in the board packet. And then John and Tom each had separate emails. This was emailed out to you today. They had questioning some things. And it looks like a lot of it, there's just language that the Miami Beach Road Association attorney was not able, didn't want to try to draw up language that really the township should be drawing up. I'm kind of disappointed we went this route, actually, because I think it's actually going to wind up being more work for our attorneys and more cost. I think our attorneys probably should have just drawn this stuff all up and then,
Well, there's not really that many things.
well, there's a number of things that do need to be added, but then some of them are just basic corrections, but,
Yeah, and their recommendation is to have a conference call with their attorneys, with the Miami Beach Road Association's attorneys, to hammer some of these things out that they listed.
I don't know that was so much you guys'. Yeah, it's not really the Miami Beach Road Association's request. I think it's Ron's
Chris
request.
Patterson?
Chris Patterson has mentioned all along that we should have a conference call about it. Maybe I can let Tom speak to kind of some of the timing of this. Were you gonna mention timing or something, or?
Well, if I could just give you a brief update, and I'm the one who I think gave the email the other day, last week. So 4 documents we're talking about: bill of sale, transfer agreement, easement, and warranty deed. And then under bill of sale, it's correct the township name, and then do we include an itemized list or not? Under transfer agreement, there was this, Jacob Whitty thought that funds were to be escrowed, and our impression from the March 26th meeting was township was just going to transfer the balance to a Miami Beach oversight. And then a few wording things. Indemnification language under that transfer agreement needs to be clarified, and that's something all along we thought the township was going to specify. And then under easement, this surprised me. Jacob suggested the township may wish to consider assigning the duty to maintain the driveway in the easement area to the association rather than assuming that yourselves. That's okay with us. That was from left field. I'm not sure you guys want to give up that. So if you don't have big issues with this, I understand that our attorneys in Lansing, also Ben Price, these guys probably know each other. I mean, I know Jacob Whitty. Myself personally, I didn't know he was going to get assigned to this. Our attorney has volunteered to call Jacob and just get this language agreed upon between the attorneys, and then we all review it without making them. That's probably the fastest way to do this. But certainly, if the township board has direction on any of these items, provide that direction. And yeah.
Ron has a comment comment here, I'm sure everybody's read his comment about this.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the two attorneys getting together. I think that's probably what needs to happen.
And it'll be the quickest way to get
Yeah.
this hammered out. And we're not that far apart,
Right,
so,
and we'll review it afterwards, certainly.
right.
So, it would launch the whole thing forward here. And we didn't see any response from Ron as far as Miami Beach, so,
He sent us a memo, and,
Just today at 5:30.
right, and he's agreeing that the two councils should get together. It's just a,
okay.
you know,
Yep, okay.
Sounds like we're making some headway on it, huh?
I'm sorry.
Sounds like we're making some headway.
Yeah, I know.
So I guess I can convey to, tomorrow, I can convey to Jacob Whitty that we agreed that the Miami Beach attorney and him, Jacob, can get together and hammer this out and bring back the documents that each one feels protects their clients.
That's very
And,
nice, sure.
Yeah, so I'll email him about that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, can I ask one other thing now, Tom? What is the update on the road commission?
We received a list of items from Road Commission, starting with, well, you need to provide us annually your Michigan DEQ permit copy and make sure that that's up to date. And, you know, I've got it in writing from the DEQ 5-6 months ago that, no, the DEQ permit was for construction only. Your discharge amounts are so low, you don't need a permit. So I'm starting over with the Road Commission here.
Are you, okay. Yeah, I just wondered. Also, addressing that escrow thing, I guess I've always been under the impression that we were going to turn over the balance of the Miami Beach Fund because they need to fund escrows. They've got escrows, you have escrows you need to fund with the DEQ, I believe. Isn't there gonna be some escrow with them, I thought?
There is if we have to do reconstruction,
Oh, okay, okay.
so.
But anyways, I guess I don't know what, what the board thinks about that, and that was one of the sticking points, that Jacob
wasn't
Woody.
it because it said immediately? It should be turned over immediately, and they thought it should go into an escrow account.
But that's the point, who's gonna have, I mean, we don't wanna be responsible for an escrow account. We're not, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
and unless they wanna put it in an escrow account,
He also may be working off an old information too,
maybe, yeah.
so.
And one other thing, are you guys gonna be getting together with are you gonna be meeting with the other Miami Beach road owners on Memorial Weekend, or has that been delayed now because of this? We don't, maybe not have the documents by then?
The Miami Beach Board will definitely meet on Memorial Weekend.
Okay,
And there's no general meeting scheduled,
okay.
so, yeah.
So you're waiting for these documents to
Yes.
schedule that,
Yes.
and for the final determination from the road commission?
Ultimately, well, yeah, once we get all the final stuff together, then we have to give our people a chance for everybody to vote.
Right.
Meanwhile, we've been updating folks. I would like to run a general update meeting for whoever can attend about Memorial Day.
Oh, okay.
But no,
I just wondered if we were bumping up against that deadline, but it doesn't sound like it.
no.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. All right, next is number 3, the emergency services building driveway project. Review engineering bid.
This is the document I resent out earlier today. If you look in your board packet, over on the bookmarks on the side, and you go down to UB3, Emergency Services Building,
Oh, we gotta get
it's, yeah, do you know how to get to the bookmarks?
To the right hand side.
What's the
Left
page
hand.
number?
Mine's on the right.
what page are we on?
Well, you can't actually, it's not in here. What I'm pointing out is that the title of the document came in here when I did combine all the PDFs into one file for the packet. The title came in here because I put the document in to be combined, but somehow it didn't bring the document in here. So this was noticed about 2:30 today. And so the chief made me aware of it, and I sent it out to you in your email with that halt fire letter. You know, I don't know, I haven't even had time to read it either. And basically, it's to choose an engineering firm, is that it?
Yep.
Chief?
Yes, as part of the, I think it was a township ordinance that requires an engineering service for this type of project.
Yeah.
So, versus going with Richter Construction, who offered, project management, we kind of incorporated the project management with the engineering services. And we had 3 contractors, provide proposals. But, and I think 2 of the contractors were gonna be here tonight, and I called them off, told them about the electronic snafu. So, it may be best if we like table it to a special meeting or even next month.
Yeah.
And that's entirely up to this board.
I think we should.
There is something that is gonna be discussed later that's maybe going to necessitate us setting a short special meeting before the next meeting, which is on June 11th. So if we wind up doing that, do you want us to add it to that agenda?
Yep, that'll work.
Okay, but if we don't wind up setting that, which I believe we're going to, it's okay to let it go till June 11th, or is it getting kind of late?
Yeah, it might be a 2020 project at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I'm willing to put it on the special meeting agenda.
Okay. It really isn't a very big project in the whole realm of things.
Right.
You know, I suspect that a company like Elmer's, or the size of a company like Elmer's, could get it done in 4 or 5 days, type of thing, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know, is the board good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Skip that over.
All right. So next is number 4, Whitewater Pines Site Condominium Final Conditional Approval.
Lindsay's here, and the Manguses are here.
Either one gets
Go for it, Steve.
All right. What questions do you have? I'm working for last year and working through all the approvals and in terms of other agencies, and I think we're pretty good to go. You guys have any questions?
Board, any questions for him?
I have a couple questions. And I might have seen this in a later document, but you have the plans over here. And so it's in the packet too, but what all again is going to be, this document isn't sealed because there's gonna be some things added to it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
So what's all still has to go on the plans?
I think there's some, Lindsay we went over the list, but there's some minor things. There were some arrows that had to be added.
Okay.
That were water flow in terms of the drainage. The drainage basins should have been retention basins, which should have been listed on the print, which that will get added to it.
Okay.
So
Scale vicinity map.
and district specifications for surrounding properties.
Yep, that's right. So the zoning around the property.
Okay.
Essentially, a couple of typos, and the next print will be an as-built site plan, which is reflective of exactly what is existing on the property, and will be the final plan, signed, sealed, and sent to the state.
After they put the irons in, then they make sure that what the irons are is exactly what you did.
Yeah.
So it's
So
exactly.
there's not irons in the ground right now?
No,
No?
no,
They
it's
do
all,
that.
right, it's all there on paper, and they'll go out and do all that work.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Okay.
pretty much it. You got a question?
Let me look at my word packet here, see if I have any more.
There's a lot to read there.
What page does that start on
A
now?
lot of reading.
Yeah, there's a lot of work there too, to create all that stuff.
So we went back from 33 to 28, the original.
Yeah, that's right. That happened at the planning commission. And you guys granted preliminary approval, June 26th last year. And so then we started on, the sanitary and all the rest of it.
Any idea why Ron called this a planned unit development?
That's what I was gonna ask too.
It's not. It's
I know.
Yeah, I don't know, he probably got confused. I
Yeah,
noticed that too in his letter.
yeah,
It's technically a site condos.
right, yeah.
We, Danny last year, we went through all that, so that's part of it.
Go ahead.
No, I just said a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think Lindsay's got some things that still need to be done.
Just general housekeeping items.
Okay,
Would you like me to come
Yeah,
up?
no, okay.
Okay. As Kim and Steve noted, there's just a few items that need to be put on the plans, which Kim dropped off a letter today stating that those, as Steve mentioned, would be added to the plans. So I'm comfortable with the way that this is. The only thing that Steve didn't mention was there's this unnamed court, and I believe that was gonna be an extension of one of these drives.
Right.
So that will be reflected on the,
Yeah, that
The
would,
name
I
will be
think,
on.
yep.
yeah.
And then also, for the easement as well, for emergency services, there'll be some form of designation that will allow them to be able to find somebody in case of an
Right, we talked
emergency.
about an address, so there'd have to be an address out there, because I think it's technically considered a driveway, with the address.
Just like any other driveway, it's required to be marked at the curb, and it will have a Hamilton Ridge Drive address.
I think the
so
township.
Just like
show
any other
that
private
Hamilton
driveway.
Township
Yep,
has an
yep.
address ordinance that
Continues down
requires
there.
It doesn't continue, it's a private
signage
drive
reflecting
off of
numbers,
Hamilton
right?
Ridge
So-
that will have two parcels on it, but the address will be on Hamilton Ridge, and the driveway marker for the fire department is required to be on Hamilton Ridge, indicating that there are two homes.
The bottom
Down
line is
that
when you drive
private
in there, you
driveway.
wanna have quick, easy access to visually see that address, and that's where it needs to be.
right, yeah,
So
that's
There
what
can
we're
be
getting at.
language, yeah, there can be
The-
language in the condo docs that say that.
Yeah, I think that needs to be addressed because emergency services has to be able to know, exactly where they're going.
It's exactly the same as any other private driveway.
I get it, yeah.
That would just be common sense.
And there's just a couple more housekeeping things. They also dropped off a letter from their surveyor in support of the basins and runoff water. Let's see, we talked about the permanent easement that grants access to lots 10 and 11. Unit 9 will essentially become a corner lot from this easement. There's some things that the board needs. They were looking initially for some variances from the general ordinance, not the zoning ordinance, in regards to the private roads. Per private road ordinance 32L, if more than 25 lots have access to a private road, a second means of access meeting the requirements of this ordinance shall be approved. And as they stated, the roads were built previously for another project. If the second approach is created, a permit is required with the road commission as in their, that's noted in the packet from the government approvals. And they've been talking with the chief about the second entrance point here and coming to some form of agreement, which I'll let him elaborate on. And then also private road ordinance number 32K, the road right-of-way for the entrance of Broomhead, serving that number of units. Like I said, needs to be 66 feet. The site plan indicates 50, and so the township board has the authority to grant variance from the private road requirements, and then the township board also has to approve the names that were selected by equalization, which are in the correspondence from equalization.
So these are the things that still need to be done. We need
Is
to,
that for final, or is that for stuff that still just needs to be completed even after final?
This is something that needs to be taken care of, so they can go to equalization and get those road names approved, knowing that the board has approved them, so they can continue to be able to finalize this to send it to the state.
and the exceptions to the ordinances, the general ordinances, that's something we need to put on an agenda, correct?
I don't believe, it was talked about at the last meeting, just during regular comment, and they had requested that. I could not find any language that the private roads had been accepted, so I felt like that needed to be clarified this evening.
Not the private road names, I'm talking about ordinance 32.
Yep, they had requested previously that the roads be accepted as is. I could not find any language that the board had approved that through the approval process. So those would be the two,
So do we need to put that on an agenda like we did with the road up in Bunker Hill, where we gave the waiver to ordinance 32? Not Hearst, Hague's Trail.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have all these, it sounds like there's several motions that need to be made, and I hate to draft them on the fly, I mean, because
I'm asking, is that what we need to do? We need to get it on an agenda so that we can formally waive the requirements to ordinance 32. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they're asking for.
I don't know how it's been done in the past, but like I said, this was discussed at their last approval meeting, so I don't know what the board's procedure for that is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem doing this, but we don't have suggested motions, you know, and so it sounds like we have several motions that we need to come up with, and maybe I can work with you on those or something. I mean, this is probably something Ron should have brought to us. We're supposed to have these action items before things are put on the agenda.
So we could do it in June.
Or we could add this to the special meeting too,
We could.
and I could work on some motions or
I
something.
think they
like
should,
that.
they've been working on this a long time. They have.
Yeah,
They need to get-
I don't really want them to have
They
to
need to
wait.
get done.
Right.
But whatever we're gonna do, I'd like to have it finished on our end, what we're responsible for.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Well, if the motions are made now, we're still in a meeting about this right now.
What motions do you want to make? I mean,
Yeah, but didn't we have to publish that we were making an exception to Hague's Trail? And we're not
I don't remember.
for ordinance 32?
It was an agenda item, I know. Granting a variance from the private road ordinance.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, they're looking for final approval, but there'll be conditions, correct, Lindsay? Conditions that they will need to meet. I mean, we can't grant final approval.
No, conditions that the drawings, you know, the missing elements from those drawings would be included. It would contain the seal and that the board was fine with the way the roads are constructed at this point.
Those are the two things,
We just can't move forward with doing the rest of our work
until you have those, yeah.
On the letter that I submitted, you'll notice on the second page in the middle, there is a list of the final approval points that would be in a typical motion for final approval pending the completion of that list. Those are the items that are still remaining to be completed, but can't be completed until final approval from the board is granted. We can't file our deeds with Grand Traverse County until the board has approved the project. There are things like that.
So,
Right, but you can't sell any lots either until you get everything in order and
Well, of course.
all
They're
filed
stuck
and all
until
that
they
kind
get
of
final.
stuff.
But until we have final approval pending from the board, there are certain things that legally we cannot complete.
And Lindsay has to have a list that she can give us so we can check it off, basically.
Yeah, specific list.
That's all.
And then in regards, I did some additional research as far as what the master plan and survey respondents, and there's a lot of support for a development like this. Personally, I've been involved in quite a few developments over my time, and this is one of the nicer ones that I've actually had been able to work with as far as layout. And just when you drive by off Broomhead, you see all the woods. I don't even think you'd even notice that there'd be a subdivision in there when it was built to capacity.
Right, right.
So if you have any other questions, if not.
So Lindsay, you said that this variance, now Kim's got on here, vote to accept the private roads as built. But, and I think we've agreed to that before even, but you said we need to formally grant a variance from the private road ordinance, correct?
Based on reading through the last meeting minutes, it doesn't look like that those 2 points were resolved from what I could find in any of the meeting minute language.
They weren't specified in the vote. They were discussed.
Yeah, they were
And everyone
discussed.
agreed that it was fine.
There was just no reflection of it in the minutes.
I'm concerned that we have to have specificity. I think for you guys and for us, we need specificity of what is being approved, what still has to, the pending items. I would like to have that right in the minutes. I'm wondering if we can put this on the special meeting agenda in a couple weeks. And not too close to Memorial Day weekend, of course. And in the meantime, maybe I can start crafting some motions, because this sounds like to me that it's gonna be at least 4 motions. I mean, we've got the road names, we've got the variance from the private road ordinance, we've got granting final approval pending these things, and they're gonna be, it's just something that we need to have it all written out in front of us, that we can say, yep, I'm gonna make that motion as written, and then we vote on it.
Just go down the line and get it done.
Just go down the line and get all of that done at one meeting. Do you guys have a problem with that? I mean, somebody
These
needs.
are, granted, there are several motions.
Right.
They are very simple motions, except road names as proposed. You're not gonna get anything more specific on what's gonna be built than a project that is complete. You can see the roads and they're all specified on the
I think a
blueprint
couple
as
weeks is
built.
fine. That sounds reasonable. I wanna make sure that everything here is done properly, so
We do
the
too.
future of the people who buy these, they don't wanna be troubled with all this either.
Well, and we have to
We wanna
make
make
sure
sure those
that,
titles are all good.
and we have to make sure that we're not, skipping any steps with you guys that another developer is gonna be required to do, because if we skip something inadvertently, it would be inadvertent, then another developer can come in here and say, well, you didn't make them do that. I just
You
wanna be
made us do
thorough.
everything twice. I don't think you're at risk of that
Oh,
problem,
I don't
Cheryl.
think we've done everything twice.
We have a
Totally different project.
supervisor, or deputy supervisor has a comment.
I just wanted to comment on what Supervisor had said toward this, just that he recommends the final of the Whitewater Pines based on zoning administrator Lindsay Wolf's finding of fact and conditions of approval. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it sounds like probably the appropriate thing to do is to put it on the next, special meeting
In a couple of weeks.
in a couple of weeks. We'll get her done. I know it isn't what you wanted to hear, but sorry.
Do you have like a list right now, an idea of what exactly we need to do?
It's at the
Action items.
end of my findings of fact. There's a conditions of approval list, and it's basically just stating, subject to all the requirements of the Condominium Act, may be conditioned upon the applicant receiving necessary state and federal permits, which they haven't received permits, but they've received preliminary approval. Construction may not commence until necessary approvals, permits are obtained from Grand Traverse counties. I mean, basic, just standards that,
So, Lindsay, will you be able to work with Cheryl on putting those motions together? that we
There's
need
a
for the-
4 motions, 3 motions, that's kind of what I was.
So that you
What
can
items
move
do we need
forward.
to- They can specifically talk about.
yep, that's no problem.
Thank you.
What probably should have occurred is when the pre-approval was given a year ago, that's what you would go out and build everything with. And that's when the road and all that should have been handled at that point. Because under normal construction, you're not gonna spend all that money on wondering if you're gonna accept it later. That's a lot of money. So, that's probably where the snafu happened. And then in the beginning of this, there's a lot of confusion, over how to handle all this. 'Cause it already
Sure.
existed.
I believe, Steve, that if we had an actual condominium ordinance in place,
It's true.
it would have been straightforward, and that's something
And that's
this
a comment
township
you
should
made that
do.
was reflected, yeah, you're right.
Yes,
Totally correct.
please.
Yeah, because Denny spent a lot of hours on that,
And Lindsay spent a significant amount.
And it should be straightforward.
Right. I appreciate your patience. We just want to get it right for you too.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So we'll look for a couple of weeks then, and get hashed out at that point.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Anything else? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yep.
Update on. Update on the ORG email address.
Very straightforward.
So if we up our service a little bit, we can get more email addresses.
Yeah, we go from 10 to 25, and it costs us, what, $30-some more? Not even.
But then we get faster, we get double the speed of the internet. And some other features that they offer.
I think they've already upgraded our internet here.
Well, I think this is based off from what the phone call, that when Ron and I were looking at this together, the information the operator was giving him, this is based off that.
Right, yeah. So basically, you want to upgrade the charter service so we can get more email addresses?
Yes,
Was it 20 or 25? you
it's
said?
25.
25.
And they'll be .org, so they will match what we currently
They'll
have.
be at whitewatertownship.org is what
Yes.
they'll be, yeah. And I had done a bunch of research, and there's only one other township that does that. Every other township, I sent that to you and Ron. Every other township does not provide email addresses to their planning commission.
Well, I like to think
But
that this township
if you want
is,
to, I'm not gonna argue with it.
I think this township is trying to communicate better, and
Yeah, let me ask you something. Are people, I do know, for instance, that Ted Hooper is not interested in having to check a township email address. Well, like Mike Jacobson doesn't even have email.
he will.
So, are people gonna be forced to do this? Is
It'll
that-
be there if they do not want to look at it, they do not have to.
Yeah, okay,
I mean, nobody's gonna force them to do something.
right,
It'll be there.
And if they get replaced out in November, they may want to use it.
yeah.
Right.
So I'm thinking, I'll probably be the one to set up the email addresses, so what kind of names are we gonna be using? Are we gonna,
Use like PC1, PC2, PC3, and then when the person goes out, it comes back, it reverts to that person's signature.
And you know, we've gotten the bios and their pictures. We're gonna be putting that on the website.
Yeah,
And in there, we can put right in there their new email
Township
addresses.
Email address.
Right,
yeah,
when they're up and running.
yeah, right, yeah.
And that way people will be able to see, this is who I'm emailing. Maybe just jump right from there to the email.
Yeah. So you want to upgrade the service to get more email addresses, and then you want an email address assigned, of course, you wouldn't get one, would?
No, I wouldn't.
But, you want us to assign email addresses to various, PC members.
Right, and I would like my deputy to be able to have her own email address. She uses mine because we don't have enough. So that'll be another one I'd want added.
Okay.
Do you mind if I say something, Cheryl?
I know.
Yeah, I have a guy who could use an email address, Captain Arbanowski, to keep communications with him. But what's appealing to me is a 5 gigabyte of storage, because right
Yeah.
now that's a huge burden, having to go in there and clean that out.
Yeah, it does.
Like on a regular basis, we're talking like every 4 or 5 weeks, so.
Yeah. If people send you large packets of
Yeah,
information. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the clerk to upgrade existing charter legacy account to charter's new.
Hold on. The existing charter legacy account to what?
I'm just reading Ron's suggested.
Okay, so it's as written.
As written.
Okay.
I'll second.
If we could just do a roll, or voice vote,
Yeah.
okay. All those, are you ready? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that brings us to new business. Number one, we've already taken care of. Number two, review and approve the building grounds worker job description for set wage.
So I provided a memo and I provided the job description, which was a compilation of a lot of different things, but things that I thought, I looked at quite a few different job descriptions from other townships. I'm not dead set on the title. If you want to call it something else, we can call it something else. I don't know, I thought handyman sounded a little too, I don't know, just didn't sound good enough, I guess. So, if anybody's got any
Maintenance would be better,
maintenance worker? You wanna call it maintenance worker? I mean,
kind of general.
yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to go through and actually do this. I read Supervisor Cox' suggestions or comments concerning this agenda item. And if I had gotten this sooner, I would have been able to look at the personnel policy and procedures manual
Yeah.
to see what he's referencing, because he doesn't really say. He just says, you're supposed to work together on these types of things, but what types of things? Because when we were putting together the job description for other jobs, you two did not work together on those. I mean, the board worked together on it.
Yeah,
And, you know, there was a copy that was brought, and then we changed and modified at
Yeah.
the board level. Is this not the same thing?
is this number 2?
Yes.
Okay. And it says I haven't made an attempt to schedule or inform the supervisor's office of the listed interviews. There's not been any interviews. I'm just trying to get a job
That's for
description
number
approved and a wage set, so we can put an ad in the
That's,
paper.
that's what I'm asking,
That's a
Cheryl.
different
When-
Right.
When we did the job description,
What job descriptions?
We've done several, job descriptions. We modified the zoning administrator's job
Oh, yeah,
description.
we've done that.
We've done, fire chief's job description.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done several, and what's happened is
We
we
had to
brought one
Yeah.
to the board, and the
Yeah.
boards went through them, and we made changes, and then we adopted what we all agreed on. Is that not, isn't this what we're still,
Oh, you gotta start somewhere,
right?
so this is where I started. If the board has changes they wanna make, let's make them and get on with it and get it approved so we can set a wage and run it in the paper. I've had, already 2 people come into my office. A gentleman came in, one day when I wasn't here and mentioned to Lindsay that he's interested in the job. Like I say, so there's been 3 people already. Remember, we put the little thing in the newsletter.
Yeah.
There's been 3 people already, and I've just told each one, well, we're at the stage where we're developing a job description.
And they saw it in the newsletter?
I mean, they read it?
They saw it on the radio.
Now, is this going on the grade wage scale also?
I would suggest we put it on there, either that or on the salary wage schedule. Probably on the salary wage schedule, I think. We put it on there and,
Well, we've
choose
been
a-
discussing this for 3 years now.
Yeah.
yeah, we have. I mean, does anybody see anything? I mean,
Under qualifications, number 2, a minimum of 5 years working experience in a similar role. Could we add in there, or board's discretion? Because what happens if you've got somebody really qualified, but they've got 3 or 4 years? I
Or
don't-
that, or they've got multiple backgrounds, and sometimes that generalized
Right, but not
background
necessarily
is better
5
than
years of-
Someone with a narrow background of 5 years.
Right.
So,
and, where is that? Minimum 5 years working experience in a similar role. I think you would want to say something like, how would you word that? I mean, if you just say, or at board's discretion, or you could say something like, that the board has the discretion to accept less experience, or, I
Except
mean-
someone with a diversified background.
I mean,
Instead of
we need
less.
somebody who has done some maintenance type stuff, or who has done something in the trades or something like that. I'm not looking for a licensed contractor here.
Right.
The licensed stuff, we hired the licensed contractor for. But I want somebody who's familiar with that kind of stuff, you know?
I just don't like the idea of saying they have to have 5 years of this type in a.
Why don't we just take it out then?
Yeah.
Let's just take that sentence out.
Okay.
Okay, so remove the requirement
Of the 5 year.
of 5 years' experience under qualifications. I just-
Similar experiences or diversified background or?
I say we just take it out altogether. That could be an interview question,
Yep.
and we can make that determination. But you're right, maybe it shouldn't be a requirement. So I've taken that out.
Are we really gonna ask him to drag the baseball field? Don't the people there take care of that at the end of every game?
No, well,
They should. The
some, in some townships who have a maintenance person, they do it.
They do a lot of park work.
If they don't have a maintenance person, parents do it. Parents and players.
Right, when we
But-
had the
but
men's
one of
league
the-
over there, the men's league did it, and they paid to use the field.
Right. One of the things that we don't have is we don't really have a piece of equipment over there for them to use. The Parks and Rec Committee has, brought this up, that maybe we need to have like an old lawn tractor over there or something, that,
Used to be something there, somebody stole it.
a piece of equipment that ran.
Yeah, you just put it on the back of the vehicle and you drove it around.
Yeah, then you're opening up for liability.
No, but it used to be there and somebody stole it.
Oh, the drag, there is
Yeah.
something over there, I don't know, it was down in the other field, I think, Lloyd there helped me with it. But I mean, if you want parents to do it, but you can't expect parents to always bring a piece of equipment, you know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you want them to do it with? You gotta give them something to do it with. They can't be, every time they go to a game over there, hauling the trailer with a lawn tractor and a drag on it.
We've gotten pretty specific on his duties, or her duties,
Yeah.
There.
their duties. One thing I didn't see, maybe I missed it. No, it's there.
What's that?
Investigating and coordinating the needs for repairs, such as getting bids for
Yeah,
the resealing of the
right.
parking lot and moving furniture, the filing cabinets. Somebody needs to get somebody in to move all the filing cabinets so the floors and
Stuff
can be done and the painting can be done. Is that the type of things that this new person would be assigned to do?
Sure, yeah, they could be. I mean, they are gonna need like, a hand truck or something to, which we don't have. But,
So they could hire a mover, they could find the people to have them come and move them.
Coordinate that.
or they can, yeah, coordinate, exactly.
That all takes time.
It does. It takes a lot of time to coordinate that kind of stuff, and we need someone that we can just hand that off to, because I don't have
And you might
time to
just
do
wanna
it.
put one line in there that's a catch-all line, a blanket line to catch, all other miscellaneous things that are not listed here.
Well, Della, on the very last line,
Jobs
I put-
delegated.
9, other duties, errands, or special projects as may be assigned by the township board.
There you go.
But then you gotta come to the township board.
Change it to clerk. Change it to clerk or supervisor. They gotta be able to talk to somebody.
Right.
I mean, we could change that to the township supervisor or clerk.
Clerk or supervisor.
Yeah, exactly. So do you wanna change that?
I do.
That is, anything I spent here. That is what, number 9, under other duties?
Yep.
Township board representative.
Change township board to township clerk or supervisor? Well, the clerk or the supervisor would be the board representative.
What if it's a special committee? Park committee person.
They're just an advisory committee. We wouldn't have them telling another employee what to do. What else do you see?
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So is there an actual list of names of people to interview?
No,
No?
not yet.
Okay. Thank you.
She said there's been 3 people that came in
Awesome.
to talk about.
We wouldn't be able to, we could do this and then we put it out in the paper for them to
Put it in the
apply.
paper, yeah, take applications, set up interviews.
I think it's a good start there. I mean, I think it'll develop as we go along.
And that's what I put in my memo, that the township's never had this position before, so we don't, there was no job description to go from. This was a start from absolute scratch thing. So maybe we decide some of these things we don't want this person to do, and we modify the job description at some point. Or maybe we come up with something that we do want this person to do. And
They
we
kind
have,
of leave it open a little bit because it's a new.
right. And that's why I put the, under other duties, that kind of catch-all line at the bottom about other errands, duties, or special projects. I mean, you know, if we have somebody in place when it's ready to put up those dugouts over there, it'd be nice to have this person help. You know, it'd be nice to have this person help with a lot of things that the Parks and Rec Committee wants to do, because it often comes down to the same couple people who are supplying a lot of that labor. And they've been good sports about that, but that's not really what they signed up for on the Parks and Rec Committee. And, you know, we have to be careful about taking on projects that, you know, who's gonna do the labor.
Right.
You know, that has to be decided. Or do we, and even this person isn't gonna be able to do everything. So that's my hope. I want this person to be the person that goes out and calls the striping and sealing companies and gathers up the quotes, and then I'll put it on the agenda.
Coordinates all that stuff.
But does all that research, that legwork, the phone calls, meeting with people, that is all time consuming.
Yes.
You know, we still haven't gotten this window fixed back here. You know,
Hey, you assigned me the rails, I got them done.
you did get them done. But, no, you said you'd do that.
So what
But,
do
I
we-
mean, there's just a lot of things, there's a lot of maintenance in this township that has not happened
Yeah.
since I've been here. I don't know what was going on before I got here. Some of it was needing to be done when I got here, and there's some of this stuff we've been talking about for years, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still not done.
No, I
Well,
think,
these are also things that are not assigned to any particular,
They're not,
statutorily to any particular
No.
board member.
exactly, and they need to be
we,
assigned to a person so that we can move forward on these things, because, you know, I mean, some of them, you know, it's like the Parks and Rec Committee is already saying, you know, telling me things they wanna do, and I'm like, we didn't put that in the budget this year, we didn't put that in the budgets this year, let's make a note of that, get a price on it, and we'll put it in the budget for next year. Because we've already made our budget for this year, and I spent a ton of time on the Parks and Rec budgets and tried to think of everything, and that was one of the things that was the problem with some of the meetings that didn't happen, is because I needed their input on some of that stuff, but yet I had to meet a deadline too, you know?
right,
So, it'd just be nice to have, and I put in the thing that it would be, and this is the part I'm not sure about, the timing of it. Where did I put? Was it up at the beginning? Hours of work. Shall be considered a seasonal part-time employee, spring, summer, fall. I mean, there's not that much to ask somebody to do in the winter. Working up to 32 hours per week, days of week as agreed upon, so flexible on that, with the possibility of weekend hours for urgent repairs. If it's something they can even do,
right.
you know, might not be something they can even handle, some type of urgent repair.
They need to call somebody.
Yeah. So, I mean, what does the board think about that? I mean, because it might set us up for somebody collecting unemployment.
Yes.
in the winter. Not that this township hasn't paid unemployment before, but it's kind of hard to know.
I don't think they can.
What's that?
I don't think seasonal part-timers can collect unemployment.
Yeah, I think they can. There is a thing that you can become an employer that is, if they meet this certain seasonal requirement, but it's like 20 weeks. They can't be employed more than 20 weeks. If they're employed more than 20 weeks, they're considered not seasonal. You know, so even at the park, we can't really designate, we call them seasonal employees, but the park is open longer than 20 weeks. So, and we've had, you know, somebody at the park did collect unemployment for a lot of years, you know, in the winter. But I'm not so concerned about that. I mean, I think we try to find somebody who maybe isn't really looking to work in the winter. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, and the other thing is, you know, so you always go back and forth between employee and independent contractor. Okay, so if they're an employee, you get to tell them what their hours are. If they're an independent contractor, you don't get to tell them what their hours are, and they show up and do when they feel like it, you know? So, I mean, I set this up as an employee.
Because that's what we discussed in our budget meeting.
Because that's what we discussed, and those are the line items that we talked about putting wages in, remember? And we set some money aside in contingency or something, for the general fund wages. Of course, Park and Rec already have money in those wage line items, and hopefully that would be enough, you know? And I don't really know, I mean, I don't know how much we're gonna use this person. I know we have a lot of things to catch up on. And to me, in the first couple years, we're gonna use them as much as we can get them. You know, to get caught up on quite a few things. But, so, I don't know, what does the board think about that?
I think we need to make a motion.
I do too. Because we got stuff that needs to get done.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the building and grounds worker job, with changes discussed.
With the changes discussed?
Yeah.
I'll second.
We can do,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah, I think voice is no money.
Yeah.
Next one might be.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, there's none. Motion carries. Next one is approval of the 2019 park range.
No, we got one more thing. We
One more thing.
need to set a wage, Paul,
Oh, yeah,
so that
that's-
we can,
I thought that was part of it, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I made it a separate motion.
Yeah, where are we gonna put that? Is it hourly or is it salary?
Probably have to be hourly, being that he's seasonal,
I would.
because he's gonna work more one week and less the next. I think it'd have to be hourly. I think the 18 is the starting point, get someone